I gonna edit the video now? Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of that Cybert channel. I'm Dan Cybert, and I need them FNAF views! I swear, as long as I work on this platform, I will never escape this franchise. We've been playing a ton of different games over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/thatcybertchannel, wink wink, nudge nudge. We've been playing a ton of great games I'd love to talk about, but if the stats from these two videos say anything, I'm a little trapped. Frustrated and rant about the YouTube algorithm aside, if we're gonna be talking about FNAF again, then let's lay it all out on the line. This series needs a hard reboot. A couple weeks ago, I worked on a game theory talking about how FNAF VR rebooted the series. And when I finished that edit in the wee hours of the morning, the only thing on my mind was reboot harder, Scott! That sounded better in my head. So today, I thought we'd test out a new show of sorts. A show where we're going to be tearing down our favorite franchises and then rebooting them into perfection. So if you have suggestions for other games for future episodes, leave it in the comments down below now. Maybe hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, because YouTube must be fed numbers. And my ego. With that in mind, let's tear down FNAF into all of its different animatronic parts and build ourselves a better Freddy.
To start off, let's take apart what makes FNAF, FNAF. Find those fundamental building blocks that make this series unique. Initially, I wanted to start with the jump scares because, I mean... Ah, stop it! Christ!
Like right. Oh my damn it!
This is basically why FNAF really got started. The game basically guarantees your favorite YouTubers are going to need to change their pants. You came for the jump scares, but then you stayed and replayed it time and time again for the lore. If there is anything we have to make sure is preserved, it's the lore. Picking apart every secret and piece of info is exactly what drives everything about the game. But it's not so much the lore itself that is super complicated and weird, trust me, we'll talk about that later, but it's how the lore is given to us. Scott has mastered this ability in leaving breadcrumbs along the way to reveal the bigger story. It's unlike any other game we've seen before, and the closest thing is maybe Gaster from Undertale. I should not have said that. I think I hear fandoms grabbing pitchforks and torches. Yep, that's bad. So let's make that our first building block, lore telling for lack of a better term, because it's not quite talking about the exposition necessarily, but how the exposition is being told, therefore lore telling. This will be our main building block when we get to talking about the story. Another easy building block is the setting itself. Until FNAF, a lot of horror seemed like it was in mansions, insane asylums, castles, etc. The more traditional horror locations. FNAF did something that tapped into a more innocent fear. Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. I mean, look at these things. This is nightmare fuel being run by more nightmare fuel. That's why you'd see me playing Ninja Turtles arcade on the complete other side of the restaurant. It's more innocent fear, which is why it makes it twice as terrifying to me. Maybe not to you that grew up with FNAF, but you wanna know what? I'm old, shut your face, and get off my lawn! So let's put the setting of the pizzeria, or robotics labs like Sister Location, up there too, setting up the presentation we wanna build off later. Finally, if we're going to take anything away from the gameplay, it's all about resource management. Using your time, energy, and tools is incredibly important in every single game. I mean, this style of gameplay has created its own genre of games. I would know. I've played nearly 100 of these. Oh, and can't forget that it needs to be horror. I don't think we can get away with FNAF World 2, Scott's second mental breakdown. So that gives us our basic blocks we need to build off of. A resource management horror game set in a child-friendly pizzeria with Scott's patented style of lore telling. So let's get started by talking about presentation, gameplay, and story of our FNAF reboot. Future Dan, hit the button! Any day now. Damn it, hit the damn button! Before writing this video, I ran a poll over on the community tab asking you guys what you think needs to be improved in FNAF. Over 2/3 of you said you want improvement to the presentation, so I think that's a good place to start our rebuild. FNAF has never been known for stunning graphics. Hell, the whole franchise began because Scott's previous game, Chipper & Sons Lumber Company, was heavily criticized for looking like animatronics. Hence, the creation of FNAF. Yet still, FNAF has always needed an upgrade into the current generation of gaming. And I'm sure it's not like he can't afford to get the help to make that happen. The original games have sold millions of copies. Not to mention the books as well. Still, as easy as it is to just slap better graphics here, it goes a little deeper than that. Scott has a very distinct style. You can look at any character model or screenshot and immediately identify it as FNAF. It's a style you see others emulate like Pop Goes or Five Nights at Candy's. So to a degree, I don't think it's character models that need help. He just needs to make the whole damn thing full 3D rather than freaking 2D static images. 6 games in, and the jump scares are still just animated GIFs. I mean, if you exclude FNAF VR. FNAF VR is easily the best looking game in the franchise, and more importantly, it shows that movement and full 3D environments is a huge benefit to the game. So moving forward in the series, we need to move away from the 2D images slightly bent to give the illusion of 3D. We need to see full lighting, animated 3D character models, and an environment we could potentially explore. You have 3D models, so, use them. Honestly, there isn't much else in presentation. The sound design has always been pretty damn good in the series. Creepy, eerie, and of course, loud as hell jump scares. Though honestly, you can lower the volume on those if you want, Scott. It'll stop my ears from bleeding. The most important thing for FNAF is bringing it finally into full 3D. Let's talk gameplay next. This section is a bit more difficult because drift too far and we'll be leaving that basic building block. The result would end up being a generic horror game, but in a pizzeria. As we mentioned, resource management is a key component to all of this, whether we're up and moving to do that or sitting down in one place. We need to be using our time, energy, and doors to properly protect ourselves. It's what makes FNAF stand out more than other quick hide from the monster horror games. Look, I love Outlast, but it does have a lot of hide and wait. Right now, there's a bit of a problem with how FNAF does gameplay. If you've played one, you felt like you've played them all. I've played dozens of FNAF fan games, and at some point, it all just feels the same, but slightly different. That's how FNAF 1 through 4 feels like now after playing so many FNAF games. FNAF Sister Location tried to change it up, but my god is that game my least favorite in the series. Just a series of mini games that don't work how they should. Trust me when I say I could rant about it forever. Now, despite how I feel about Sister Location, I do feel there was a lot of potential there. Ways to shake up the core gameplay that still thematically ties in with what we're doing. And the biggest potential here lies in the parts and services sections of FNAF VR. I freaking love this concept. Adding this between survival sections of the games would be fantastic for many reasons. As we mentioned, it could shake up the gameplay if paced right, similar to the salvage sections in FNAF 6. And just like how the salvage work, it also plays up the horror. FNAF 1 through 3 is all about keeping the horror away from you, but these parts and service sections force you to confront your fears in close quarters. But thirdly, and what I think is most importantly, it can be used to teach us how to handle each animatronic through gameplay rather than a long phone message that explains it. Yes, I get it, phone guy. You love Foxy. Just don't do anything with the fox specifically relating to yiffing. Speaking of Foxy, think about that parts and services stage. We're told right away to keep your eye on him at all times. Look away from Foxy, and you get jump scared. That could translate easily to the survival section, like in FNAF 2, where you'd have to make sure to shine a light on him to stop him, slowly ramping up the gameplay in small bits so you don't feel like you're on 50-20 mode when you arrive on the harder nights. One of my favorite games in the series is actually FNAF 4. Sure, it did some really weird stuff with the lore, but the game side is easily one of the best in the series. It slowly ramps up in difficulty, allowing you to handle each animatronic in a safer environment before throwing all of them at you at the same time. Parts and services sections could create that one-on-one environment without it seeming like it has to hold your hand for the first 2 hours of your shift. You would know with very little trial and error exactly how to deal with them. Plus, it's a little more fun than kinda listening to Phone Guy because you're afraid that you're gonna get jump scared. Now, when it comes to sitting in an office, that's when I go back and forth. Almost every FNAF has you being stuck in one place. While free roaming has been explored in games like Joy of Creation, I feel we should still be trapped in a room. Or rather, our resources to protect ourselves should stay in that one room. While the night-to-night parts of the game will need you to stay in the security office, you could have the option to explore or say need to leave for a scripted event. Having all your sources of power going out in the middle of the night could create an interesting gameplay moment as you have to turn on the emergency power halfway through the night. Heading to a utility room or basement could help shake up the gameplay yet again. But I want to emphasize scripted. FNAF already suffers from rough RNG where surviving the harder nights comes down to luck. Adding in random exploring moments could really just make later nights more miserable, which, let's be real, is miserable enough. To sum this all up, we're looking at resource management that would also include one-on-one stages with each new animatronic threat to shake up the gameplay. Whether that be repairing or some other event, we want a controlled environment to learn about handling new threats. Also, our FNAF should have the ability to roam around the office and the option to explore the pizzeria, though that option leaves you defenseless and more often than not lands you in the wonderful position of being stuffed into a Freddy-shaped Iron Maiden. On the poll we mentioned earlier, the story was the lowest scoring aspect, basically showing that most people thought the story was good, but might need a little help. I mean, it is the major drive of this series right now, and the lore is the main part of my day job, taking all these pieces and trying to put them into this nice timeline right here. Check it out. It took me about a half hour to build this nice line of events in MatPat 20 episodes. Looks good, right? The answer is no. No, it is not good. Hear me out, I said, knowing that you're already unsubscribing, because while Scott is a genius at lore telling, again, the way he gives the lore, he comes a little short on the actual story. I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make about analyzing FNAF is confusing how Scott delivers the lore with the actual content of the lore itself. There is no doubt that Scott is a master of hiding the bits of lore in his games. How we uncover all the pieces and put the puzzle together is a game all in itself, but the picture when we're done doesn't always make a whole lot of sense. One game hints that the puppet is the crying child, while the next tells us it's this kid. The books are canon, but an alternate canon. However, there is this quote: thoughtful fans might want to give these sections a closer look to determine how they impact the story of the games as well, meaning that these books might be canon? Now, what is and what is not canon changes on a whim, all depending on what Scott needs to shove into his line of events. When you create a story, one of the biggest and most important tasks you need to take on is world building. What is this world? What happened in the past? What are the rules of this world? Good world building acts as a glue to your storytelling. Concrete rules that make it more immersive for your characters and players. You could see this with the world in Borderlands or in shows like Steven Universe, Rise of the Shield Hero, and The Good Place. These shows create such a strong world that when something is revealed, suddenly a lot makes sense, and you can go back through previous episodes to see all the clues leading to that. In FNAF, we more often than not revisit old lore bits because we have to completely reinterpret it. FNAF 1 through 3 tells the haunting story of Purple Guy and his victims. FNAF 4 makes the whole thing a dream. FNAF Sister Location makes it all about the story of the Afton family. FNAF 6 changes it all to soul experiments. And now FNAF VR makes it all a game! That's 5 major world changes in 5 years! That's insane! And in the end, it all didn't matter because as we find out in FNAF VR, it was just Scott making games in the world of FNAF, which he created! This franchise gets more meta than a Death Battle Deadpool! So, in the spirit of what is trying to be done with FNAF VR, let's throw all of it away, but keep a few points. Purple Guy, the missing children's incident, and Fazbear Entertainment, since Scott seems to be going somewhere with the company. Now let's take a brief moment to talk about Purple Guy. Do you find him interesting? As a character, do you think Purple Guy is a well fleshed out character? I would argue that for the main villain of this franchise, he's pretty damn bland. Like super bland. What exactly is his motivation for his Wait, what's a good YouTube safe term for this? His child existence removals. That works. What is the motivation for his child existence removals? Well, it's because his child died and he's trying to revive him through remnant experiments. But was it? According to the timeline, he was existence removing before that moment. Well, it's for immortality reasons. That's from the books, which might be canon. In the end, he's just kinda evil to be evil. So if we're rebooting this series, let's make Purple Guy more interesting. Let's give him a motivation why he does what he does. Have his child's death actually lead him down this path. In order to save his daughter, he begins experimenting with Remnant, which leads him to needing test subjects, which leads to existence removals. And eventually, he begins to like it. He starts to get a high when he does it, and suddenly, it's not about saving his daughter. It's about filling an emptiness. That's a more interesting character. And speaking of characters, let's give our own character some stakes besides don't die. A little motivation besides I need money. Our FNAF VR beta tester had something at stake. He was to be the new vessel for Afton. Now that's interesting and hopefully something we'll see moving forward. So to take all of this ranting into our new game, our new FNAF will follow a security guard with stakes in staying the whole 5 nights and starts to uncover a Fazbear Entertainment dark secret. Then, through Scott's masterful lore telling, we learn more about the truth of Purple Guy and Fazbear Entertainment's motivation. The clues can and should be just as vague as they've been for all the theorists in the world. And with that, we've completed our FNAF reboot. We're moving from 2D images to full 3D environments like we see in FNAF VR. Our gameplay is broken into 2 sections of survival and repair/exploration that weave into each other. And finally, our story will help flesh out the world and characters to bring more motivation other than bad guy is bad. That is our perfect FNAF game. Okay, well, it's my perfect FNAF game. I'm sure you that disagree are slapping the dislike button as I speak, but you know, instead of doing that, why not let me know what you would do to improve the franchise? What is your ideal reboot for FNAF? I've always had a love-hate relationship with this franchise, but that negativity comes only from some of that missed potential. In trying to get a sequel out in less than a year, Scott rushes through where he should be sitting down and really fleshing out the game and its world. But if he takes parts of what he's done, he could reboot the series into one of the greatest gaming franchises we've seen. Hopefully what we talked about here could help him do that, but I doubt it. Not because he doesn't want my advice, but rather my name isn't RoccoW. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a computer to remove from a fire. Not sure how I'm going to Thank you everyone for watching. It's a new type of video, but if you enjoyed it, maybe we'll work through remaking another franchise. Leave those suggestions in the comments below. A special thanks to Elizabeth Mello and all my Patreon patrons. Hit the like button, subscribe, all the YouTube pleasing goodies. Until FNAF Fan Games 4, Cybert out.